There are some JRPGs that I've had on my shelf for years, unopened, untouched, quietly waiting. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't in the mood for that particular style of game, or maybe I just wasn't ready to get emotionally invested, or I just didn't have the time to fully dedicate to it. This video is about those games, the 10 Nintendo Switch JRPGs I missed, but can't wait to finally play on Switch 2. These aren't just backlog titles, they're second chances at experiences I've been longing for. If you've ever put off a game you knew you'd love, this one is for you. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I skipped Fire Emblem Three Houses. Even saying that out loud makes me wince a little because everyone I know, every friend, every reviewer, every Fire Emblem fan, they've told me the same thing. You're going to love this one. And the worst part? I probably would have. The tactical battles, the branching paths, the moral weight of every decision, it's the kind of RPG experience I've always adored. The kind that doesn't just hit you strategically, but emotionally as well. The kind that makes you feel every move, because it's not just a unit you're repositioning, it's a character that you've grown to care about. But when it came out, I was tired. Not physically, not mentally, just RPG tired. I just wrapped up a massive 80-hour game, and the last thing I wanted was a calendar system, lesson plans, relationship charts, and the emotional commitment of guiding an entire generation of students into war. I think I was afraid of it. Not of failing, but of committing to it. You know when a game feels too big, too rich, too layered for your current headspace? Like you're not ready to carry what it's offering? That's what Three Houses felt like. A game that demanded more than I had to give. But now I think I'm ready. I want to get lost in those monastery halls. I want to pick a house and ride that loyalty to the bitter end. I want to feel the sting of betrayal and the quiet pride of a bond, well forged. And on the Switch 2, I know this experience is going to be better. Faster load times, smoother performance in battle, and visuals that make every character portrait and background shine just a little brighter. I don't think it got a patch for the Switch 2, but just the increased performance power will help tenfold. And then there's the DLC. A whole side story that I wouldn't have even been able to touch if I played this at launch. So luckily, I can enjoy the entire experience instead of just a part of it then needing to go back to it later. This isn't just about ticking a box in my backlog, it's about finally allowing myself to be present for something special. I want to be there this time fully. I don't want to rush it. I don't want to feel overwhelmed. I'm just ready for it. Now, I finished Octopath Traveler, and I remember exactly how I felt when the credits rolled. It wasn't just satisfaction, it was something deeper. That first game, while it wasn't perfect by any means, for all its disjointedness and criticisms, it kinda spoke to me. I loved the structure. You had 8 different stories, each with their own emotional core, and it just felt fantastic. However, I do wish it kind of had the characters that noticed one another more. But that music? God, that music. It still lives rent-free in my mind to this very day. So when Octopath Traveler 2 was announced, I felt like someone had read my JRPG wishlist and started checking off boxes. New characters, new continent, a tighter narrative focus, a day-night system that looks like it could completely reshape how you interact with the world, and visually, somehow, they took that already gorgeous HD 2D style and refined it even further. It looked like a watercolor painting lit from the inside. And yet, I didn't play it. Not because I didn't want to, I did. Every time I walked by my shelf and saw that little cartridge waiting, I felt that pull like I need to play this game. Something in me hesitated. I think part of it was fear. Not that it wouldn't be good, but that I wouldn't be able to give it the attention it deserved. Octopath isn't really the kind of game you just dip into casually. It asks for your time, it asks for your full attention. And when life gets loud, with deadlines, work, responsibilities, sometimes it feels safer to play something smaller, something simpler, but that itch never went away. If anything, it's stronger now. And with the Switch 2 on the horizon, I think I finally found the excuse I needed. Because this is a game that deserves the best hardware. I want those towns to glow a little brighter, those transitions to feel a little faster, and those battles, especially the boss fights with those incredible sprite illustration hybrids, to hit just that little tiny bit harder. I want to experience it with sharper clarity, smoother performance, and fewer distractions. I want to feel the world of Celestia come alive in my hands the way Orstera once did. And honestly, I want to fall in love with that sense of discovery again. That slow unraveling of characters and choices and unexpected connections. I want to hear the music swell when a story reaches its crescendo. I want to remember why I loved the first one so much, and see just how far the sequel takes it. I finished Octopath Traveler, it earned a place on my shelf that will never be replaced. But Octopath Traveler 2, I think it's time I give it a chance to earn a spot right next to the first game. When Echoes of Wisdom was announced, something in me lit up, like a part of my childhood stood up and smiled. I've been playing Zelda games for as long as I can remember. While I started with the original Zelda on the NES, A Link to the Past was one of the first games that ever made me feel awe. Not because of the scale, or the puzzles, or the world, though all of that was there, but because it felt like a story I was part of. Link was our silent stand-in, sure, but the journey, that was my personal attachment to the series. But through all of those adventures, from the pixelated mysteries of Koholint Island in Link's Awakening, to the sweeping drama in Twilight Princess, or even the wild freedom of Breath of the Wild, one thing never changed. Zelda herself was always the one being saved. So, when Echoes of Wisdom put her front and center, not just as a playable character, but as the hero of her own story, it felt like something sacred was being rewritten in the best way possible. Yes, I'm aware this is not the very first game where Zelda was the hero, however, we're not talking about Zelda's adventure. That game does not exist, and I will not hear about any disagreements. Anyways, the moment I saw the gameplay, my curiosity turned into genuine excitement. This isn't just Zelda with a sword. In fact, she doesn't use a sword. She's using magic. She's duplicating objects. She's solving puzzles by manipulating the world in creative and unexpected ways. It's a system that feels deeply personal, like an evolution not just of the series mechanics, but of its entire message. But even with all that excitement, I had made the choice to wait. I know, it's kind of counterintuitive. We've waited decades for this kind of Zelda game. Why not jump in right away? Because I want the experience to be just right. I want this new chapter, this overdue moment for one of gaming's most iconic characters, to feel as polished and beautiful as it can possibly be. And everything I've seen makes me believe that Switch 2 will be the best way to experience it. I think about the soft pastel palette of the visuals, the painterly colors, the diorama-like world. It's already stunning in the trailers, but I know from experience, like with the Link's Awakening remake, that slight dips in frame rate or jagged edges can pull you out of the magic. I don't want that for Zelda. I want this to be seamless, smooth, magical, all the way through. With the Switch 2, not only did it receive a patch to improve these visuals, but it also added a new mechanic. You can favorite echoes now, allowing you to choose your most used echoes so you don't have to scroll through hundreds and hundreds of them on a regular basis. And then there's the emotional layer. For those of us who've grown up with the series, who felt that familiar ping of the item jingle, or who watched those heart containers fill with quiet triumph, this isn't just a new game, it's a homecoming, but it's also a reimagining. And that's powerful. We've watched Link become the hero over and over. This time, we get to see Zelda grow. We get to see her struggle and rise and choose her path, instead of just being a passenger in someone else's journey. That means something, especially to longtime fans who've always seen her potential. So yes, I'm waiting, not because I'm hesitant, but because I care, because this moment matters. With all that being said, I'm actually currently playing through Echoes of Wisdom, and honestly, it's everything I could have asked for. Everything is in its place like I wanted it to be. The music is fantastic, the puzzles are great and thought-provoking. Even if beds solve all issues, but Zelda shines. Not in someone else's spotlight, but finally in her own. There are some games you just don't play. Wait a minute, that didn't sound right. Let's try that again. There are some games you don't just play. That sounds better. You live in them. For me, Xenoblade Chronicles has always been that kind of series. I remember booting up the definitive edition on the Switch, not really knowing what I was getting into, and being completely floored. It wasn't just the scale, though that was breathtaking. It was the way the world felt. Massive open fields that stretched into the clouds, mysterious monsters lurking off in the distance, stories that weren't afraid to deal with love, loss, and purpose. It was everything I loved about JRPGs, turned up to 11. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 deepened that connection. Its characters were complex, even when they were kinda silly. The systems were dense, maybe even overwhelming at times, and I wish they were explained a bit better, but there was a rhythm to it, a kind of beautiful chaos that I got addicted to. Though I could have done without the gacha mechanic for blades, but by the end, I felt like I'd finished a novel, not just a game. It stayed with me. So, when Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was announced, I felt this weird mix of longing and dread. I knew I wanted to play it, but I also knew what it would ask of me. See, these games don't let you just dip in and dip out. They demand your attention, your emotions, your time. They ask you to care about the world, about the characters, about the philosophical questions hiding all under the combat and lore. And at the time it released, I just didn't have the emotional bandwidth. I was working more, life was noisier, and the idea of throwing myself into another 70-hour epic felt heavy. In fact, I was a bit burned out when Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came out. Right before its release date, remember how I mentioned a 70-hour epic? I had burned through the first Xenoblade, its DLC story, Future Connected, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and this was all over a month's time. I hadn't even played Torna yet at that point. I wasn't ready to jump into another Xenoblade game so soon. And since then, it's been sitting on my shelf waiting to be played. It's all paid off though, because Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has received a patch for the Switch 2 to enhance performance, so I'll get the opportunity to play the game in the best form possible. I'm starting to feel that pull again, that quiet voice on your shoulder that says, "Come back. The story's still here." I've heard that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is maybe the most mature entry in the series, not just in tone, but in theme. A story about fleeting life, about choosing meaning even when time is short. That hits differently now than it did a few years ago. I think I'm finally in the right headspace to sit with those questions and to feel whatever it wants me to feel. And that's what I want. I just want to feel again. I want to meet new characters who will surprise me, frustrate me, break my heart, and then rebuild it. I want to stand on the edge of some colossal structure and just look out into the distance, wondering what stories are unfolding on the horizon. I want to lose myself in a soundtrack that knows when to go quiet and when to go big. Xenoblade 3 is more than a game on my backlog. It's a journey I've been putting off for far too long, and I think I'm ready to walk that path again, fully present and fully open. There is a certain kind of magic in tactical RPGs. The way they make you pause and think, really weigh your decisions, and feel the weight of every move on the battlefield. Growing up, games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre shaped my understanding of storytelling in games. They weren't just about winning fights. They were about politics, morality, sacrifice, and how a single choice can ripple through lives and history. So, when Triangle Strategy arrived, wrapped in that gorgeous HD 2D style that had become a signature for this kind of game, I was immediately intrigued. The promise of a story, driven by tough choices, branching narratives, and deep tactical combat, felt like a perfect fit for someone who appreciates complexity and nuance. But here's the truth. I struggled with it. Not because it wasn't good, far from it. The story, the characters, the setting, all of it had potential that pulled at me. But the way the story unfolded, the sheer amount of dialogue and political exposition, it demanded a level of focus and patience I just didn't have at that moment. I remember sitting down wanting to immerse myself, but feeling distracted. The conversations went on, and I found myself zoning out, missing important details. It was frustrating because I could tell this game deserved more. This game deserved my full attention. So I decided I would step back. But now, thinking about Triangle Strategy again, I realize it's exactly the kind of game I want to dive into right now. A game that respects your intelligence, that treats its story like a complex tapestry instead of a simple path. I want to sit down, free from distractions, and really listen to the characters. I want to ponder their motivations, their fears, their hopes. I want to agonize over those branching decisions, knowing there isn't a right answer. There are only consequences, some more intense than others. And the combat, there's a rhythm to it that I missed the first time around. Grid-based battles that reward careful planning, positioning, and synergy between your units. The satisfaction of turning a tough fight by exploiting the terrain or enemy weaknesses. That's the kind of thoughtful gameplay that feels like a conversation between me and the game. I also think that the Switch 2 will elevate this experience. The HD 2D art style is beautiful, but a smoother frame rate and sharper visuals will make those tactical battles feel even more alive. The animations will pop, the environments will feel more immersive, and I'll be able to soak in the atmosphere without any performance hiccups pulling me out of the moment. More than anything, I'm ready to fully appreciate the emotional weight of the story, to experience the triumphs, the heartbreaks, and the moral complexity that make Triangle Strategy stand apart. It's not a game for rushing or multitasking, it's a game to be savored slowly with care. And this time, I want to savor every single moment. Harvestella caught my eye from the very beginning. It was different. A Square Enix game that didn't feel like the usual grand epic or deep RPG, but instead blended farming, crafting, and action RPG elements into something fresh and unexpected, not to mention a job system. The concept felt intriguing, almost like a dream where I could both escape into an adventure and enjoy the quiet rhythms of daily life. But I'll be honest, when it launched, I hesitated. The reviews were mixed. Some of the criticisms hit hard. Clunky controls, a combat system that some found shallow, pacing that didn't quite gel for everyone. It made me wary. I didn't want to dive into something that might end up feeling frustrating or half-baked. Still, there was this little spark inside of me. A feeling that maybe the game had something genuine beneath its rough edges. Sometimes the best experiences come from unexpected places. From games that aren't polished masterpieces, but carry heart and creativity in their core. So I gave it a shot. I have always loved games that mix action and world building, that let me step into a living, breathing world where the changing seasons aren't just background details, but affect the story and gameplay itself. Harvestella promised a world shaped by 4 seasons, each bringing its own challenges and beauty, and that alone made me want to come back to it. I originally tried the demo, and what held me back was partly technical. The Switch's hardware limitations might have made the experience less smooth than I had hoped. But with the Switch 2 on the horizon, I felt hopeful. I imagined the game running with more fluidity, the world feeling more vibrant and alive. The crafting and farming systems will be more rewarding when the flow isn't interrupted by slowdowns or loading times. Beyond the mechanics, I want to see if Harvestella's story connects with me the way the trailers suggested it might. A narrative that's woven with the changing seasons with themes of growth, loss, and renewal. That's the kind of emotional depth I crave in my games. I did actually give this game a shot originally around the time it was released. I didn't get far into the game. I was really enjoying it, but then I suffered an injury that put me out of commission for 6 weeks. After I recovered, I attempted to play it again, but I was so lost in the story and gameplay that I just didn't find that joy that I had originally had. I think a fresh start is due. It would really get me enthralled into the game again. I just need to find the time to do that because I remember having a lot of fun with it. I think Harvestella is a reminder that sometimes the imperfect games can still hold magic. They ask us to be patient, to look through the rough spots, and to find the warmth beneath. And I want to be patient. I want to give it the attention it deserves and let myself be surprised. This time, I'm going to come back with an open heart, ready to embrace the quiet moments as much as the action. Rune Factory has always felt like one of those series that was quietly waiting for me to fully appreciate it. It's like this beautiful blend of so many things I love. The peacefulness of farming, the joy of building relationships, and the thrill of dungeon crawling and battling monsters. It's a combination that feels just right for someone like me who's always sought the balance between quiet and cozy moments as well as exciting adventure. So when Rune Factory 5 finally came out, I was ready. I wanted to jump in head first. I had high hopes for this one, imagining myself planting crops, fishing by the river, exploring caves, and maybe even finding a pixelated romance to root for. But the early impressions gave me pause. Performance issues, frame drops, technical glitches that kept bubbling up in reviews and player feedback. And honestly, that disappointment, it hit hard. I've been burned before by games that don't quite live up to the promise, especially when they're games from beloved series. It's hard to get excited when you know the experience might be marred by frustrating bugs or slowdowns. I wanted to love it, but the hesitation won. I decided to step back, let the game sit for a while, hope for patches, or maybe a better hardware environment down the road. The Switch 2 feels like the perfect opportunity. With more power under the hood, smoother frame rates, and improved load times, I imagine finally being able to settle into Rune Factory 5 without those distractions. More than just technical improvements, I want to dive into that rhythm again, the slow, satisfying cycle of tending to crops, building friendships, and taking on dungeons when the mood strikes. For me, Rune Factory is about an escape. It's about getting lost in a world that feels alive and full of those simple pleasures, with just the right amount of challenge. I've admired the series from a distance for too long, and now it feels like the right time to finally jump back into it. To let myself fall into that world where magic and daily life intertwine. There's a comfort in that balance, and I think Rune Factory 5 has the potential to be exactly the kind of game for me. So yeah, with a hopeful heart, I'm waiting for the moment where I can finally get fully immersed, without worrying about stutters or glitches. Baten Kaitos has always been one of those whispered legends from the GameCube era, a cult classic that many spoke about, with reverence, but few had actually played. I remember seeing screenshots back in the day, and watching my friend play it, while reading about its card-based combat and lush hand-painted worlds. It felt like a hidden treasure, a game that existed just out of reach for me. I first got some interest in the game when I saw a friend of mine playing it one day. The combat was flashy, the music was sublime, and the amount of fun he appeared to be having with it. I had no idea what I was looking at, but by aesthetics alone, I was hooked. But sadly, this game was incredibly hard to come by, and for the longest time it was expensive, so I didn't get the chance to play it myself. When the HD Remaster was announced, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and excitement. It wasn't just about playing a game, it was about connecting with a lost piece of RPG history. Something that felt unique and different from everything else I'd played. There's something special about discovering a game that's not quite mainstream, that offers a fresh experience and style all of its own. But this remaster wasn't perfect. There were choices, like the lack of English voice acting, that left me a bit hesitant. I understand this is a bit odd coming from someone who enjoys nothing but JRPGs. However, I'm just an oddball that prefers an English dub no matter how bad it was, because while Japanese voice acting is fine and usually the original format that the game was designed for, it's far easier for me to get sucked into a JRPG's world when I understand the voices and the emotion behind everything. Still, there's beauty in imperfection. Sometimes the quirks and flaws are part of a game's charm, especially one as unique as Baten Kaitos. The art style alone, those sweeping, vivid backgrounds combined with detailed characters, has a way of pulling me in, like a storybook come to life. More than that, I'm curious about the narrative. I've heard the story is complex, layered with twists and emotional moments that stayed with players for years. It's a tale about fate, friendship, and sacrifice, themes that resonate deeply within me after decades and decades of gaming. I want to experience that for myself, to finally understand why this game earns such passionate fans. With the Switch 2 out now, I'm hoping the experience will feel much more polished and accessible. Faster load times, better frame rates, and enhanced visuals could bring this classic to life in a way that feels fresh, but respectful to its roots. I'm ready to jump into Baten Kaitos, to appreciate the world not just as a game, but as a journey, one that has been waiting quietly for me to catch up to. The World Ends With You is one of those rare games that feels like it belongs to a very specific moment in time, both in the gaming world as well as my own life. I first heard about it when it launched on the Nintendo DS, and even back then, it had this edgy, vibrant style that just felt fresh and different. The urban setting, the unique combat system that blended touch and button controls, The music that pulsed with energy, it all combined to create something unforgettable. I didn't get to play it when it first came out though. The DS era was a busy time, and somehow the game slipped through my fingers. Later, when Final Remix came to the Switch, I was tempted, but I was also hesitant. I'd heard whispers across the internet that the controls didn't quite translate perfectly, and that some of the magic was lost without the original hardware's dual screens. And since it was a beloved game, I didn't want to risk a diluted experience. But now, I feel like I missed out on something important. The story of Neku and his struggle in the Reaper's game. A story about connection, identity, and second chances. Feels like it would resonate deeply with me now, even more than it might have a decade ago. The themes of friendship, growth, and the pressure of the world around us have always been meaningful in JRPGs, but The World Ends With You brings it in a way that's raw and real. The art style, with its bold graffiti-inspired visuals and fashion-forward character designs, has always fascinated me. It's like walking through a living, breathing city where every corner has a story, every shadow hides a secret, and the soundtrack, honestly, that's probably one of the main things that kept my interest. It's like an eclectic mix of genres that somehow captures the heartbeat of the city itself. With the Switch 2, I imagine this experience could feel even more immersive. Sharper graphics, smoother performance, and improved controls that could bring the pulse of the city to life like never before. Maybe the pacing will feel better, the combat more fluid, and the emotional beats, they might hit harder. I want to approach The World Ends With You with fresh eyes and an open heart. It's a game that's always been waiting for me, just like that friend who's been there all along, ready to share a story when the time is right. And this time, I'm ready, and the time is indeed right. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth has a special place in my heart, not just because it's a solid JRPG, but because it ties directly into a part of my childhood that shaped so much of who I am. I grew up with the Digimon anime, the toys, the trading cards, the comics. All of it felt like a world I belonged to. Do you remember those Tamagotchi-like Digivices? I spent so much time raising my little Vmon. So, when Cyber Sleuth was announced, I felt this surge of nostalgia mixed with excitement. It was like a chance to visit the world, but through the lens of a mature, well-crafted game. But this was another case of where life, it got in the way. When it first came out, I was juggling way too many games and way too many obligations. When the Switch port arrived, I was still hesitant. I'd heard mixed things about performance and polish, and I didn't want to invest in a game that might hold me back or feel rough around the edges. Yet, the more that I thought about it, the more I realized what I was really missing. Cyber Sleuth isn't just about battling digital monsters or hacking into cyberspace. It's about the relationships you build with your Digimon partners, the stories you uncover, the mysteries that unravel as you dive deeper into the digital world. It's about that perfect blend of adventure and emotion, the kind of story that hits you unexpectedly. I love a murder mystery, and couple that with Digimon and the composer from the Danganronpa franchise, my interest in it had peaked to levels never seen before. Side note, that being said, play Danganronpa, it's amazing and fantastic in every aspect, but we aren't talking about that right now, are we? Back to Digimon. I can just imagine playing Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth on the Switch 2, with smoother loading times, enhanced visuals, and tighter gameplay. Could finally give me the full experience Cyber Sleuth deserves. I want to feel the weight of my decisions, the thrill of discovery, and the joy of watching my Digimon grow alongside me. More than that, I want to reconnect with a part of myself that's always loved exploring these digital worlds. The part that remembers the magic of the original Digimon craze, but is ready for a new kind of journey. This is more than a game I skipped, it's a chance to reclaim a piece of my past and move forward with it, fully present and ready to dive in. So there we have it, 10 JRPGs I missed but can't wait to finally play on the Nintendo Switch 2. These games represent more than just JRPGs in my backlog. There are full-blown experiences I should have experienced but I just haven't gotten into yet. What about you? What's in your Switch 2 backlog? Are there JRPGs that you skipped that you're ready to embrace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear all your stories. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future JRPG journeys of mine. And before you head off for the day, why not check one more video? This has been Chinky, thanks so much for watching, and until next week's video, have a wonderful day.